and welcome to this first episode of my hobby diaries, where I'm essentially going to have a couple of weeks full of hobby activities and I'll take you along with me. I do have a few ideas in plan for what hobbies I want to do, and then also if any other ones pop up, I'll do those too. I have in fact started this with the clips that you saw in the intro, where I essentially updated my annotations for Diabound. I read this book in a previous video and the annotations I did were done with a blunt pencil, which I did not like, so I did end up updating those in here, which was the first item that I wanted to do. These are also likely going to be the last hobbies that I do for 2025, which is so exciting because it means I've spent the whole year essentially really making the most out of my hobby, so I'm really happy with that. Now, a few of the other things that I want to do are, right at the end of 2025, I want to update my scrapbook with things from December and also maybe a year highlight spread as well. I also want to update my book journal with any of the books that I've read in December that I want to add into there. I will likely do these two right at the end just to make sure I incorporate everything that I want. I do in fact have a class booked to do some candle painting, which is probably going to be my last arts and crafts event that I go to for 2025, so I'm really looking forward to that. That is going to be in London, and of course I will do some reading. That is what I've got planned at the moment, and we'll see if anything else comes up. Now, speaking of reading, I did just finish reading The Spell Shop and I ended up giving this 4 stars. This is a cozy fantasy and we follow our FMC, who right at the start has to flee the great library that she works at in order to save her own life during a revolution, and she goes back to her hometown where magic is essentially banned, and this is causing some issues for a lot of the townsfolk. So we get to watch her journey as she goes from someone who often chooses to be isolated to someone who craves and enjoys connections. We also have a fun sidekick who offers a lot of comic relief and a nice little romance as well. So this was a really fun cozy fantasy that I've just finished reading, and I am currently listening to the audiobook of With Dagger and Song, which is the second book in the Curse of the Siren Queen series. So that is where I'm at with reading, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I did in fact start a new hobby, which is journaling in this notebook that I bought earlier on in the year, but I couldn't decide what I wanted to do with it until now. I did buy a couple of things from Ryman's, including some new pens, a correction tape and some pastel highlighters because I've really been liking pastel colours recently. I actually went in with the intention of buying a fountain pen and then saw the prices and thought maybe not yet, let's wait until I get more into journaling and then I can decide if that's something I actually want. The first spread that I did was my audit on 2025, which I used this TikTok for prompts, and I will link the TikTok in the description below. Yes, I know I've written 2026 on this spread, but I do later change this to 2025. I wrote down my responses to those prompts and put it together on this spread. I then, on the next spread, did my hopes for 2026 and what I want to do moving forward, and just kind of a promise to myself as well. This was a lot of fun. I do have to say I don't love how these spreads necessarily turned out, but I want to give myself grace with this and just allow them to not be perfect and allow it to not necessarily be aesthetic all the time too. So I have in fact started a new hobby. I mentioned that I bought this journal earlier on in the year, which I did do at my local bookshop, but I could not decide what to do with it for a very long time. I went back and forth with a few different ideas until very recently when I have just been on a lot of journal talk and I thought that would be the perfect way to use this. I do have other journals which are kind of focused on just my day-to-day thoughts and things, so I want this to be much more reflective, hopeful, whimsical, and just have more fun with. Whilst I don't love how the first couple of spreads look in terms of aesthetics, I think it was really fun to just start. I do want to make this a bit more crafty like how I do with my book journal, but I'm sure that will come as I start to do this just more often and play around with it a little bit more. But I am glad that I've started a new hobby and I've been wanting to use this for something for a while, and it just seems like the perfect thing to use it for. The next time I will see you will actually be on Saturday when I head to a candle candle painting event in London. I have been wanting to go to one of these events essentially since it started to get cold in England in autumn time. And the ones that I had seen were either too far or the timings just didn't work. And so I'm really glad that I've managed to book this in. And it will be the last arts and crafts event that I go to before the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to it and I will see you there. So I am about to head into London to go to the candle painting event. I just need to change and then I can head out. But I'm really looking forward to this. I think this will be the last arts and crafts event that I go to this year, which is something that I'm really looking forward to, and I think it's a good way to kind of close off the year. And I've been wanting to go to a candle painting workshop for a few months now, so I'm happy that I'm finally getting to do this. This is a 2-hour workshop and it's actually a sunny day, which is lovely. So I'm hoping I can get out and about and see some of the Christmas lights too. Good morning. Today I want to update my book journal. I have 2 main spreads that I want to add. The first is my TBR for 2026. These are the main books that are kind of on my radar. This is a mixture between book series that I started in 2025 that I want to catch up on or complete, new books to me that I've found and want to read, a couple of new releases, and also just any other books that I have in my mind right now that I want to read in 2026. I just want these in here so that I can reflect on them when I can't decide what to read throughout the year, and just so that I can really be clear on the books that I want to pick up in the new year. And the second spread that I want to add is my January TBR. These are the main books that I want to focus on in January. I do have a couple of the main ones that I want to read and I just want to get a spread ready for that. So let's go ahead and update my book journal. So the first book journal spread that I did was my 2026 TBR. Now I have quite a few books that I want to read this upcoming year. So I did in fact split these into a few different categories. The first category is my winter priority, with the first books being Duskbound and The Ascended. Duskbound is the second book in the Esprithian trilogy and The Ascended is the first book in an interconnected series, so I just want to catch up on these. Second is to finish the Caraval trilogy. I read Caraval a couple of months ago and so I want to complete this trilogy. And the third priority for winter is to finish the Curse of the Siren Queen series. I've read the first and second books but still have the third and fourth books to read. Then I have general series that I want to catch up on. I did start quite a lot of series in the past year, so I want to complete or catch up on as many of them as I can before I start any new ones. So firstly in this category is to complete the Book of Azrael series or catch up on it. So that will be books 2 to 4. I believe there is still a couple of more books to come out, so I just want to catch up on the books that are already out in this series. Next is the Lady of Darkness series. I've only read the first book, so I've got books 2 and 6 to read. There is also another interconnected series with this, but I don't think that's going to be on my TBR for this year. It is one that is still on the back of my mind, but I will see how much time I have throughout the year and if I end up picking that interconnected series up or not. And finally in this category is An Ember in the Ashes quartet. So I've read the first book, so I have books 2 to 4 to read, and then that series is completed. Then I have a few other books which are either the first book in a series or just individual books that I want to read. First is Heavenly Bodies, second is Blood Moon, third is Secret of Alchemy, fourth is The Secret History. I have Heavenly Bodies, Secret of Alchemy and The Secret History already as physical books, so I should hopefully be able to pick those up soon. And then I will need to get Blood Moon as well, which I think would be a fun book to read as well. I also want to try and venture into a couple of other genres. So I've got a classic and a thriller written here. I don't know what specific books in these two I will read. I will see closer to the time when I'm actually about to pick them up and then decide which book I will read. But I do want to read at least one classic and at least one thriller. I want to get a bit more into classic books in general, so I figured if I start reading them a little bit over the next year, it would be a good way for me to get introduced into that genre. And then with thrillers, and see how I feel about the genre. Then my next category is spring/summer. These are two book series that I think I will enjoy reading during these seasons. I tend to read less during spring and summer. However, I'm hoping that this doesn't happen this year and that I do continue to read quite a bit because I've really been enjoying it recently. So the first book series is Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. This is interconnected with the Caraval trilogy, and I've heard so many good things, and I just think it would be a perfect trilogy to read during spring. And then second, I want to read the Hunger Games series. I've never read them. I have watched the movies when I was a lot younger, but I don't remember a lot of it. So I would really like to read all of the books and then rewatch all of the movies as well. So I'm hoping to do that in spring or summer. Then I have two new releases that are on my radar. I'm sure there are many more that I just haven't realized I will want to read. These are the two that are on my radar. The first one is Light Wielder. The first book in this series was The Metal Slinger, which I read a couple of months ago, and so Light Wielder is the second book in the series. And then we have Fury Bound, which is following after Direbound. I really enjoyed both Direbound and The Metal Slinger, so I'm looking forward to continuing these series in the next year when these books come out. I think they actually both come out in spring. Then I have some bonus book series. This is if I do manage to finish all these books and I have some extra time, extra books that I want to read, then these are the book series that I will try and prioritize. Firstly, we have the Red Rising trilogy. Now, from what I understand, there are quite a few books that are involved in this world, so I want to focus on the first main Red Rising trilogy. I do, in fact, have the first book, Red Rising, so I will hopefully be able to read that as well, and then the rest of the trilogy too. And then I would like to read one of the book series that has already been adapted into TV shows or movies that I enjoy. So I have three options for this. The first is Twilight, then we have Pretty Little Liars, and then we have The Vampire Diaries. Now, I won't be reading all of these, I will just be reading one. And you know, as I'm reading these, I'm realizing that I've spelt a couple of things wrong. So I will go back and fix that. But I will only be choosing one of these book series to read, and then hopefully I can read the other two maybe next year or just following up. But that is something that I want to do as well. I think it would be really fun to read these and then watch the actual TV show or movies again as well. And then we have the Shadowhunters world. Now, I know there are quite a lot of books in this world, so I just want to start it. I did read a couple of these books when I was a lot younger, so I do think I still have them. So I would just like to maybe start a couple of the books in this world and then continue it into next year, 2027. And then I have a couple of bonus books. So these are just a few extra books that I would like to pick up if I have the chance. So the first one is When the Moon Hatched. Then we have Legendborn, which is the first of its series. I think there are two books already out in this series, so it'll be fun if I get to read both of them, but that is one that was also on here. And then we have If We Were Villains, which is also a dark academia. So the other dark academia that I have on here is The Secret History, which I do already have a copy of. Now, my goal for 2026 is actually to read 30 books, and this is a lot more than 30, so I don't know how far I'll get. However, I have really been in a reading flow recently, so I'm hoping to continue that as much as I can throughout the year, just because I've really been making time to read. So I really want to keep that up, and I think this would be a great way to do it. But that is my 2026 TBR.
Like honey, oh, so slow. A saxophone whispers where shadows go. Gentle piano paints the twilight's hue as cobblestone sighs beneath our shoe. The books are sleeping on the dusty shelves. Stories of lives and forgotten selves. A cafe gentle drum and play.
So I have in fact updated the book journal with both of the spreads that I mentioned. So we do have our 2026 TBR, and honestly a lot of this is more writing than I expected it to be. I do like this kind of crafty bit on this side, but I think I missed out on that when I was first setting up the spread. So I'm sure I'll add a couple of things throughout, but I've got all of the books on here that I want to read and prioritize this year. And then we of course have my January TBR. I really love how this one turned out. I think it's nice and crafty and just really cute, and I'm happy with this one. And those are the two spreads that I wanted to do today. Now that does actually bring us to the end of this video, because those were all of the hobbies that I wanted to include. I do want to do some cozy gaming at some point before the end of the year, but I don't think that will be in the next few days. But that does mean that these were the last hobbies of 2025, which is actually quite fun and exciting. I'm so glad that these have become such a big part of my life now, and that I continue to kind of branching out into new ones, such as the candle painting and just going to these different events. So I'm really looking forward to a whole new year of being able to do these kinds of things and just really enjoy my hobbies and make the most out of it. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!